Good evening to all the participants. Sama Audit Systems and Softwares Private Limited is pleased to bring this sixth in the series of Analytics Wednesday webinar. And today's topic is building a robust data analytics framework. Uh, it is really a delight to have a house full on Zoom and also a number of participants on YouTube. And we have two distinguished speakers today, S. Bhaskar and Abha Sarda. Sama Audit Systems and Softwares Private Limited has been at the forefront in bringing audit technology and even technology for finance professionals, forensic experts, etc. And 20 years back, when no one was talking about analytics, Sama Audit brought idea analytics into the country. Sama Audit has a edge over others in terms of having a lot of domain expertise in internal audit risk management area, which helps it to deliver solutions to customers. Among the basket of solutions that Sama Audit has to offer today are, of course, Idea Analytics, which is a flagship product. You have LSA, which is continuous control monitoring or continuous auditing solution at a client server level. Then you have got artificial intelligence audit technology, which is Analytics AI on the cloud. And recently, Sama Audit has added external audit working papers with IFRS, Ind AS, audit templates, and financial, etc. capabilities. So I would request you that if any of you are interested, you may just go to the website and look at the e-learning modules, the training modules, the solutions which are there, the brochures which are there, case studies, videos, etc. And you can also look up the Sama YouTube channel where there are past videos of Analytics Wednesday, where a lot of experienced speakers have shared their experiences, thoughts, etc. Now, with this short introduction, let me come to our distinguished speakers for today, with S. Bhaskar and Abha Sarda. So I'll formally introduce both of them to you. S. Bhaskar, a very dear friend, a veteran in the field of governance, risk and control. Let me formally introduce him to you. He is the Chief Internal Auditor of Tata Capital, has over 35 years of experience in leadership and management positions in the field of governance, risk management, internal audit, supply chain, finance and accounts, business excellence and quality. And he has put in stints at Hindustan Unilever Limited, Marico, and the New India Assurance Company Limited prior to Tata Capital. As a professional volunteer, I think this is very important, as Bhaskar serves as a member of the Audit Advisory Committee of United Nations Office for Project Services. Previously, he has served as the National President for Institute of Internal Auditors, India. And he is a chartered accountant and an AMP graduate from Wharton School of Business, University of Pennsylvania. I think this is a very short introduction that he has given. He has a lot of speaking assignments, publications, etc. to his credit. So I think he's devoted a lot to the profession, internal audit profession in the country. Coming to Abha Sarda, I think she's a passionate internal audit professional with 15 plus years experience spanning across continents. I think it's important to work across continents, across geographies, because then you are able to appreciate different cultures, different styles of working, and you become better at understanding people and delivering solutions. She is adept at providing a wide variety of solutions addressing risks related to business processes, enterprise applications, and technology infrastructure. She has been with Tata Capital Group for over 13 years, and currently she is leading the internal function at Tata Capital Housing Finance Limited as an assurance and consulting partner. She also leads the information technology audits for Tata Capital Group. She is a chartered accountant, certified internal auditor, certified information systems auditor, and specializes in implementation of various technology digital initiatives within IA, including audit management systems, data analytical software, and data visualization software. She is also interested in deploying innovative and agile audit methodologies for providing maximum assurance, value addition at optimal cost. So today we have two great distinguished speakers, And I would request Bhaskar to deliver his keynote, and then Abha can take us through the topic in more detail. So, Bhaskar, over to you to set the tone, please.
Thank you, Deepji. Good evening, all. So it's wonderful to connect with all virtually. I mean, I hope all of us, all of you are safe, healthy, and happy. And this pandemic has really, kind of, transformed us. But it's something amazing that, we are still connected, and it's kind of amazing to see that, like most of us are, devoting most of our kind of wakeful life in front of the monitor, be it through the mobile handphone or through the laptops. Anyway, like sometime back, when Deepji, was kind of, sharing this idea of starting this weekly analytics Wednesday. So I was just kind of, stating to him that, maybe this is a very good initiative, but it will be useful to make this as a complementary thing. And that's, I'm really kind of wanting to compliment Deepji for this initiative. And I have been kind of, like knowing Deepji for some years, and, his passion and commitment towards internal auditing or internal auditors is really amazing. His initiative of starting an analytics school along with the BCAS, and also like, the e-training offerings, which are also like, very useful. And of course, this initiative of this weekly complementary sessions, they are also like very good, which will showcase many of us and many of, the entire fraternity, in their various journeys. Now, with this, like, kind of now that, I thank the sponsor, like, the main session topic rather. Now, building a robust data analytics framework. So, as internal auditors, for us, analysis is something which is fundamental. We have been doing analysis right from beginning, or without analysis, we can't operate as auditors. Now, this analysis, SIS has become TICS. So, what has made this as TICS? The TICS has happened through technology. Be it like Excel, be it like ACL, be it IDEA, SAS, various things. Also, the data was on paper. It was like, maybe people's mind. It went into mainframes. It went into databases. It went into data lake, data mart. And, with all this data, then again, we use the TICS to do data mining, data analytics. Then we want to do storytelling. We want to do storyboard. We want to do visualization. We want Tableau. We want, there are so many terms. But fundamentally, what is this? This is only enabling us to do our core function of analyzing the data and providing our two fundamental jobs, providing assurance and providing insights. Now, from a leadership perspective, there are like kind of, some aspects which is very fundamental, which I thought we should share. Because anyway, as the part 2, my colleague will share the journey what kind of we have been following, which, like maybe as a part of part 2, we'll do that. So the 7 aspects, which maybe it will be useful, I thought maybe like I'll just share that as a part of the keynote. So the first aspect, which maybe we should kind of reflect, is on the strategy. Now, actually, like, what do we do? What do we want to analyze? Which is the business segment, or which is the area where this will be really helpful? What is the insight which can really help our stakeholders to really benefit? How do we want to kind of, provide that? Should we want to spend money, or we want to kind of use our existing resources and provide that, that wow insight? So that's something which we should reflect. We should also think whether we would like to be the first mover or a fast follower. So strategy is extremely important. We need to have clarity in all this. Then only we can embark upon a data analytics journey. The second aspect, which I thought, is we should also think about the structure. How do we want to kind of, run this, whether we want to run our own, we want to outsource, we want to run this as a project, we want to run this as everybody has to do analytics, or we want to centralize this. We need to think through all this. I mean, all these things will vary from organization to organization, environment to environment. So we need to kind of really reflect on all these matters. So the third aspect, which I thought is maybe on, we should also think about the culture. Now, as a audit professional, what kind of, like message we want to kind of convey, whether we want to be data centric, we want to be like, more intuitive, because auditing also can be intuitive also, not necessarily kind of not data centric. So how do we kind of, inculcate this culture, and how do we promote, how do we kind of, make sure, we support from the top? That's something which is, extremely crucial to reflect upon. Then in terms of capabilities, again, we need to kind of think, like what kind of capabilities we would like to run through data analytics. Say, for example, we can run our internal auditing offerings through the traditional way or through the data analytical route. So we might choose that, certain projects we will do only through the analytical route. Certain projects we will run it through only the traditional route. Certain projects we will do a combination of both. So this is something, again, it's a judgmental, we'll have to kind of assess the situation, and based on that, we will take a call on that. So, and also we have to also think about, how do we sustain this over a period of time? The fourth one is on, when we say we want to kind of build, it means we own the data analytics. So what kind of talent, we would like to kind of, induct in our function? Whether we want a auditor to do data analytics, or we want a data scientist to do data analytics, or we want to convert a auditor into a data analyst, or a data analyst into an auditor. So we need to think through all this. So, I mean, these are all, like individually, all these areas are a topic by itself. So we need to reflect on all these matters. Suppose in case we do hire a data scientist, what kind of career paths which we can kind of offer? Because he will be bored, or how do they identify themselves? So we need to think through all these aspects. Of course, we can always say that, like internal auditors should learn analytics, they should become data scientists. Then what about auditing? Auditing also has to be done, no? So you can't keep on, doing storytelling and visualization and all. So you need to do auditing also. Then also you think about the operating model in which you want to run the larger internal audit shop. Whether you would like to do a co-sourcing, you want to do outsourcing, you want to do insourcing. Somebody will say like, you have to do a process-centric, like audit. Somebody will say agile auditing. So in all these circumstances, how do we want to kind of, build the data analytics framework? So that's another area of reflection which we now do. So the most important aspect, which is very critical, I feel, is we need to get the sequence right. We need to, it is something a judgmental. What should come first? Like, do we want to kind of, get a outsourced provider, service provider to support us, partners, and show the benefit of analytics? Or second is to kind of, we do our own internal, experimentation, trial and error, and do something. Or we need to kind of look at, what are the various metrics? How do we bucket them? What is something which can be done immediately? What can be done in a stage 2? What will have a quick payback? What will have lower complexity? So we'll have to also define some success metrics as to, like, to really measure, are we really progressing or not? So I know that I have been like quite, like very, vague or, directional, giving a statement on, how do we build data analytics framework. But then, like I thought as a keynote, this is what I'm supposed to do, because anyway, in the part 2, we are going to share the actual journey, which is there. So having said that, I thought, like we should also like reflect on this data analytics framework is it's something, when you say building is a continuous process. It's not a built process. It's, depending on, like how the organization moves, what is the kind of data maturity, what is the digital maturity of the organization, we may need to kind of adapt, reflect, etc. So before I end, I thought, like I should also share, a WhatsApp forward, which one of my close friends had, like shared with me. He said, like I will be quite philosophical in this. So he has given me that statement, which I thought, let me take the opportunity to share that. So what he says, Maharishi Mahesh Yoshi, yogi. I think Indira Gandhi's, yogi or guru or something. So followers in a way pioneered analytics in meditation. So based on their research, various research centers started giving empirical data on lowering blood pressure through meditation. So now after 3 decades, wellness is part of treatment. So which is largely the outcome of analytics led empirical evidence. So basically like connecting Maharishi's, yogis, meditation and analytics and wellness program. Friends, please stay safe. Please be happy, be healthy. With this, now I just hand over the session to my colleague Abha for the actual our journey, Tata Capital journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhaskar. Abha, over to you, please.
Hi, good evening. Just wanted to check if I'm audible and the presentation is visible to all.
Yes, please. Abha, all good.
Thank you, Deepji, for this initiative, and thank you, Bhaskar sir, for setting up the context for today's session, which is building a robust data analytics framework. I think in terms of the availability of data, we are all aware that the amount of data that we've created in the last 2 years is more than 90% of the data that exists. So by all means, daily in our lives, we are creating a lot of data. And data analytics is basically analyzing this data. So this is not something new. A lot of our ancestors many years ago have kind of estimated the distance of the earth from the sun, etc., using their own means and tools for data analytics. So this is not a new topic, but I think it's become more relevant today with the amount of information that's available. What we thought was that rather than talking about one framework, we'll also make it more interactive by telling you all our story at Tata Capital, our journey. More importantly, giving you a glimpse of certain elements that we've implemented and what mistakes we've made. So this is a snapshot of what really the universe at Tata Capital covers. There are multiple entities, oddities, locations, geographies, but I think the key aspect that impacts us most is the number of key systems that are there, the number of controls that we need to review, and the number of risks that exist. And being highly regulated, I think that the rightmost column is what got us thinking, in the sense that how do we make ourselves more relevant? How do we make sure that we are addressing our regulators, our various stakeholders, and how do we ensure that we are more productive? So with this in mind, we decided to set up a data analytics framework. We thought that without a structure in place, this will be the guiding principle for us for whatever data analytic related initiative we take. So we decided to club, like Mr. Bhaskar said, all the elements into 3 segments so that they're easy to understand, remember, and implement. The first being mantra, which is that before we embark on any data analytic initiative in the department, we will be extremely clear on the strategy and the operating model. The next element was tantra, which is the talent skills that Mr. Bhaskar spoke about and the capabilities required for that specific data analytic assignment. The third element being yantra, with a plethora of tools and technologies that are available. Which tool and technology are we going to pick for that particular assignment? So this is, I think, the 3 key elements in our data analytics framework: mantra, tantra, and yantra. Most important being the strategy and the operating model that we're going to adopt. Also, what talent skills we are going to require, whether we are going to upscale or we are going to outsource, and what tools and technologies we're going to leverage. Moving forward to mantra, I think this is common across all organizations where we have multiple stakeholders. The audit committee expects enhanced risk coverage. The CEO, CFOs expect returns on investment. They expect insights which are more real time. The process owners, we need to continuously involve with to understand what are the changes, what are they doing, how can we improve, etc. Some of the companies may have a specific data science team. We need to make sure that we are leveraging each other's work and there's no duplication. The IT team is a key stakeholder or partner in the journey to make sure that whatever tools and technologies we're using have the right security controls in place and there are no data access issues subsequently. But most importantly, I think where a lot of places people go wrong is the internal audit team. I think the biggest challenge that you face is the mindset change. Everything else is easy to manage, but to get the team to change the way of working, to kind of change what they've been doing for so long, I thought that was the element where we faced a lot of challenge. So the first and foremost in Mantrak would be securing sponsorship and commitment from various stakeholders. Uh, I think the element that we adopted was to identify who are the advocates that we have in the system and who are our challengers. And how do we make use of our advocates to promote this? And how do we kind of uh, mitigate whatever challenges our challengers would be throwing at us? So this I think is the first and foremost is important because the tone at the top would kind of set the pace of the implementation and the success of the entire program. The next key aspect which comes into place is what should the objectives be. Uh, so I think what we felt was that our data uh, analytic objectives should be well aligned with the business objectives. We need to understand from a business perspective where is the value in the data, what are the critical data assets, what are those assets that are going to give us either the insights or the assurance that we're going to look at that we're looking at, and how do we go about the journey. The other dilemma that we faced at Tata Capital was how should we get started. We had a lot of brainstorming because considering the number of projects that I indicated earlier, whether we want to do this on a pilot basis, we want to do this entity wise, we want to go big bang. So what we decided was that we'll start on a skateboard, which is we'll go big bang. The way we approached the entire thing was that we set up a training boot camp for a week where we got all our auditors together. We brainstormed the entire process. We realized that we had to first begin with identifying what are the automatable risk scenarios vis-a-vis what risk scenarios will continue to be manual. And the bootcamp helped us prioritize which aspects we want to pick up first. Moving to the next element, which is Tantra. Tantra in the mythology means the people that we have. So I think one of the aspects that one needs to consider while implementing such a program is whether we want to do it in-house or outsource. There's no one size that fits all. There is no one solution to this. But there are a couple of aspects that you may consider while deciding which approach is better. With the in-house team, you will also need to know whether you have the budgets, you have the know-how, you have the available resources for driving this, and whether they will be able to cater to ad hoc queries that kind of keep coming up. So versus an outsourced model, which would give you agility, it would give you industry comparisons, and it would kind of be restricted to standard queries because uh, they have you would probably engage them for 30, 40 specific risk scenarios, and then every risk scenario that you modify add comes with an associated cost. So we kind of weighed the two options. There is no right or wrong, like I said in this, but considering the stage the organization was in, the setup that we had, we decided to go in for an in-house model. But what we also have kept the option is to engage consultants or leverage on our existing data science team as and when there's a need that arises. We thought we will do this in a decentralized manner where we will get all our auditors to kind of start using the tool. Uh, at Tata Capital, we didn't see too much success at it because the auditors were more busy and comfortable with just using basic tools that they were using, such as Excel, etc. Uh, and they were more busy in kind of completing their audit plans rather than really leveraging technology the way it should have been. So we decided to go in for a centralized structure with a data analyst SME, which is actually an auditor who's kind of performed well, and he's being given this opportunity to man this table or desk for a specified period of time, which is a year or 2 years, and then probably later on go back into the auditing pool. uh, when you're looking at whether you want to do a centralized or a decentralized model, I think some of the facts that would come into mind would be how many specialists do I have, or how many people do I have that I can move to such a centralized team who can take on this responsibility of upskilling themselves and using certain tools to generate the output. The other advantage of having a centralized structure that we found was that there was focused execution. When we were expecting auditors to kind of use the tools and give us outputs, and a lot of their time was, I think, getting spent on learning the tools, and we didn't find it too efficient in terms of the delivery. So what we thought and found was that setting up the centralized team gave us a focused execution and a prioritization for this particular initiative. um, Also, with the centralization, the advantage that we saw was that a repository started getting created at a central level. While this does involve some of your resources getting freed up from regular audit work and doing this, but we've seen the benefits and we're quite happy with the journey that we've had. In the decentralized model, the advantage is that you get a broader spectrum because there are many resources at a point in time who can kind of use the tools and execute them for you. One of the aspects that made us tilt towards the centralized model was also the licensing and the costs associated with the tools. So, if that's not a challenge, then the decentralized model does work because then there are multiple hands that are executing this for you. The other advantage that you also get with a decentralized model is that the core auditors who are actually reviewing those areas have maybe a little stronger business acumen than the data analysts. So, in terms of understanding queries, relating data points, and closing out on the queries, the process is much faster. It also kind of helps you to prioritize the area because the person knows that this is what I need to complete. These are the areas of high risk which I need to kind of take up on priority. The third element is in terms of how to get started. So here there are various thoughts whether we should restrict data and analytics to just the planning phase, just the execution phase, or so what we decided was at Tata Capital was that we wanted to do it in an integrated approach. So, both the teams of the auditors and the data analysts would work together cohesively during the audit life cycle at various aspects, which include planning, execution, and visualization, so that they are involved in the entire audit life cycle. One aspect that you may want to consider is the rewards and the KRAs associated with these programs. Because um, also at some places you may note that whether the auditor gets the credit for the finding or the data analyst, and how do you kind of reward both the teams. That's one element. I think it's better if it is specified in advance so that both the teams are equally committed in for the success of the program. The last but an important aspect in the entire data analytics journey is the tool that we use. Uh, like our previous speakers have spoken and Deepji alluded to, there are multiple tools that are available in the market today. So, just thought of giving you all some indicative aspects which you may consider when finalizing on a particular tool. The first and the foremost being of the cost, so the initial cost as well as the ongoing cost associated with the tool. Also, what kind of support system is available, whether they're available in India, they're available abroad, are they available at a call, or do I only need to write to them, and which method of communicating suits me. The third element is how easy the tool is to use, and what kind of trainings will be required for my team to use the particular tool. Other elements are the volume of data it can handle. Fifth, and I think it was an important element in our journey, was how well can that tool integrate with the current suite that we have. So, like I mentioned, that we already had a lot of systems in place. We had a lot of tools, technologies already that were getting used. So, which tools would kind of integrate well with the entire suite? What are the offerings of the tool, and whether we can have some kind of customization possible as and when required. So, in terms of the overall journey, like Mr. Bhaskar mentioned earlier, uh, we did not need any analytical tool till 2015. So we are a young company. We started in 2007. The internal audit function was set up in 2000, early 2008. And till 2015, we had a co-sourced model. So the fieldwork was outsourced to various auditing firms, and we were kind of reviewing the work and reporting. So we really never felt the need for an analytical tool. In 2016, when we set up our in house team, we started with basic Excel that was being used for analytics. We evaluated a lot of tools that were available, and we procured IDEA. Why I've specifically mentioned IDEA procurement is what I will indicate when we come later in the journey. So at this point in time, Tata Capital was undergoing a lot of digital transformation across its processes. Our stakeholders wanted us to continuously deliver more with the resources that we had. The expectations were of real-time reporting, and the teams, being millennials and the younger generation, wanted a lot of work-life balance in their lives. So we decided that we will have to embark quickly on the data analytics journey. And hence in 2018 is when we really started using IDEA. So it was for a good year and a half when we had actually procured the tool. We had done a lot of experimentation with implementation of the tool. So like we said, we first tried it with the decentralized team. Then we also tried to run it on a project basis with a contractual employee, but it did not give us much success. So in 2018 is when we set up our centralized team and really started implementing IDEA for analytics. In 2019, we also used Tableau for storyboards and visualization. In 2020, we started using SAS for machine learning. And in 2021, we've kind of, with the help, because the organization has created a data lake, we started leveraging uh, the lake, and we've also piloted certain RPA projects. So what we thought was, rather than making it a more of a one-sided conversation, we'll actually give you some glance of certain case studies and certain implementations that we've done. So the first predicament that we had was, how do we predict contracts with higher chances of defect? How can our sampling be more uh, focused and specific in terms of contracts which are likely to default? So as part of our credit underwriting audit samples, we started using the decision tree model, which is a type of a supervised machine learning tool. So what this was obviously not done by us standalone. What we did was we collaborated with the data science team. uh, the key elements in the journey were analyzing past OFIs that we had so that we could get a training data set for the data science team to analyze. We kind of got together and figured what are the variables that were required for the decision tree. They worked on the model and they kind of extracted contracts which had higher chances of non-conformance. And then we applied certain filters or business overlays for coming up with the final samples. So there was a lot of predictive analytics that we've moved to. We've seen that the defect rate has improved. However, it is not that you get the perfect lot at the first go. So the model is continuously learning. We keep giving our feedback after each and every audit, and the system is learning with whatever information we are providing it. So this has helped us improve our turnaround time and has added to a lot of accuracy. However, considering the risk rewards, the time required to build this, etc., we also continue to use IDEA and Excel for the other audits that we do for sampling purposes. So, like I said, you need to really know what is your objective and accordingly pick up the tool that you're looking at. So some of the aspects key that are here in this journey of sampling at Tata Capital is that I think planning is critical. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So the entire project has to be well planned. You can collaborate with others. They could be your internal IT teams, your data science team, or they could be your external consultants or partners that you can leverage on. The other element that we realized was we can predict the future seriously. However, the key is actually knowing in what is that audit data analytical objective that we have, finding out which is the right skill set needed, but most importantly, the right strategy. Uh, One of the other elements was, and we saw a lot of success with, was the engagement that we had with the data science team. Because the more questions you ask, the more curious you are, uh, you will get the better answers are you going to get. So, and also because of these discussions, we saw that we were able to kind of tweak the models and give us better results. The last but not the least, I think don't be scared to make mistakes. You may not get it right the first time. However, it'll always be an experience that will teach you something. Moving ahead to the second case study that we wanted to discuss today, was we saw a lot of effort was going in kind of repeated reperformance of a lot of risk scenarios which we need to cover either across products, across branches, or year on year. And what we decided to do was we've kind of developed scripts and macros using IDEA, and it's considerably reduced a lot of our efforts, and it has reduced the person dependency and the know-how of the particular matter. So it's all well scripted in advance. I'll just give you a glimpse of how this works. So this particular test that we're performing here would actually take us close to 12 man days a year. So here we're trying to identify certain revenue related deviations. And with this macro, for example, we were able to complete this activity in less than a minute. We can do it across products. We can also repeat this year on year. So I think this is how, but what's important is to identify and know which such tests we want to prioritize to pick up for this kind of digitization. So while the data that will show up here pertains, it's basically test data that we are showing here. So we've actually just created a test data set for the purpose of this session. Okay. So this is how quick we were able to actually run this test, thanks to a lot of scripting and macros that we've done. Uh, the key elements when we are doing an exercise like this is, I think, to begin with the quick wins, which where basically the quality of data is good and the risk is lower. So that kind of boosts up your confidence, and you eventually would go for the win-wins, which give you the most bang for the buck. Prioritization of efforts is key, because you have a small team initially that is kind of running the entire analytics program. They can't obviously cover all your requests at one go. So identifying these quick wins initially, I think that's a key element in terms of success for the entire initiative. The other element that should be emphasized on is the close partnership between the data analyst and the auditors. I think the closer they work, the more cohesively and in an integrated manner they work, whichever model you choose, whether centralized or in-house outsource. I think the person who's doing the analytics and the auditor, the closer they are, the better result you're going to get. Also, one of the elements that we saw was the moment you finally freeze your macro or script, it should be after your final set of observations are accepted, because at times you get a lot of false positives. You may get a little bit of better understanding from the auditees during your discussions, and hence the recording of the macro and the final updation into the repository that we do, we prefer to do it once all the final set of observations are accepted. The third case study that we have today for you all is that while we were communicating the information in a lot of slides with the regular tables and data, there were two challenges that we were facing. One is how do we extract data directly from the system, and secondly is how we can present it in a manner that's visually more appealing. So what we've done is, as an organization, Tata Capital invested in the project of creating a data lake, which has over 6,000 fields where information from multiple system feeds in. What we've done is we've started accessing data directly from the database rather than relying on process owners or with the IT team to generate certain reports from backend that were required. Also, we've used Tableau, which helps us create interactive dashboards with various drill downs. So just to give you a glimpse of the entire automation in this aspect that we've done is we've directly connected to the servers. The advantage is that you can do a couple of analytics within the tool as well. The Excel, this is important. What we've created is we've created a data dictionary for us, which tells us really which field is there in which table. So it's kind of easy to refer to and identify where the information lies across the multiple tables that we have. So I think this is one good practice that maybe you all can also imbibe, is creating a kind of a data dictionary or a data reference document, which helps you identify where your critical fields, in which tables or reports do they lie. So here again, we've kind of changed the data a little, and we're using test data for the purpose of this demo. But what we've done is we've got these predefined scripts and we've kind of visualized them in dashboards. So depending on the nature of the risk scenario, it's the kind of dashboard that we've kind of published, which is accessed by all the senior management, including the MD. So now most of our reviews are online like this, with data in a drill down and an interactive format, which is visually very appealing and easy to understand. Some of the aspects that you may consider in your journey are: begin with the risk scenario. In our early years, what we were primarily doing is beginning with data, looking at what are the various columns, running an hypothesis, seeing if there are any gaps, and coming up with OFIs. So I think begin with what's the risk scenario, what's my objective, and then go backwards to what data we need for kind of meeting that objective. Also, at times it's okay if you don't reach your destination. I mean, you can just change your path. Not every time did we see that the output was really like we wanted, or the presentation was in a manner in which it could really be understood by the stakeholders. But we kept improvising our outputs during our journey. Also, I think we got a lot of positive feedback when we started publishing these dashboards, because like they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So it's much more easy for people to kind of understand, interpret, etc. The challenge that we faced and we still face is of garbage in, garbage out. So data integrity continues to be a challenge. What we do is we've got a very immediate feedback loop with the IT team. So every time kind of we're seeing at any point in time that there are data quality issues, we're immediately giving that feedback to the IT team, and that's how they're appreciating it. So that was one of the reasons why we got sponsorship for the program, was that they knew that audit would kind of deep dive and access numerous fields, unlike other functions which access only specific data sets. And with the detail that we have in our reviews, etc., we would be able to give them this feedback much faster in terms of data accuracy, etc. So that's been our journey there. As regards, so a lot of data in financial services is in documents, and I think a lot of organizations must be having the same challenge. Now, here the tool is not important, it's basically the thought that how can I automate testing on unstructured data to make sure that I'm kind of covering the entire population, and those repeated monotonous tasks are not something that takes up my bandwidth. So here we've embarked on the automation journey. Here, the reason why we saw some success was that we identified who are the key stakeholders. We identified what are the uh, robotic process automation initiatives that are going on within the organization. We spoke to various stakeholders to understand what their journeys have been, what all they've automated, to try and understand if we can leverage something out of it and not have duplication. We also realized in the process that there was a lot of time where some of the bots were idle. So they were not really being utilized to the full potential. And that's where we saw an opportunity. Kind of, we teamed up with the operating teams. We determined an operating model uh, to kind of use the same set of bots that were being used by the business teams in their idle time to kind of do a little bit of the audit work that we have. So, just to give you all a glimpse of our bot journey. So the bot logs in remotely, etc., and does exactly all the steps that an auditor would do in a predefined scripted manner. Here, what we're looking at is we're trying to access certain information that is in reports uh, across. So the bot is going to search the specific report in the data management system, pick it up, open it, pick up the relevant information. The bot has also been designed to, so here we've opened one document, like for example, and the bot is going to compare that information with information that exists within the system in a structured format, so that we can identify areas where there have been deviations to the policy and check if the deviations have been adequate. So here another report is being looked up, and the bot will open it and pick up the relevant information. So this it does for multiple records, unlike the earlier system where the auditors could physically just pick up a few sample records. And finally, all the exceptions are then documented in an Excel like this. So across all records, it'll capture in terms of who are the approval authorities. Is this okay as per our deviation matrix or not? So this is the kind of final output that we get, which is a pre-filled checklist for the review. Certain aspects here to keep in mind would be that you need to constantly rethink and look at, how can I do this better? You can't kind of be complacent and think, okay, I have implemented these two tools, I am doing data analytics, and this is enough. I think the need is to constantly think. There is newer technology that's coming in every day. Identify which technology really would meet the objective that you have, but importantly, put the money where it matters, because all stakeholders are finally looking at what's the return they're getting on their investment. I mean, in audit also, we look at this as if, if I was to invest in this particular tool and this is the return I'm getting, would I be okay with it? So put the money where it matters. Find the tool that integrates best with your current suite. In For the robotic process analytics, we used the same vendor and the same tool that was there within the organization. Uh, for RPA success, identify tasks that are structured, rule based, and repetitive. And there's one thing that we all know we will not be able to automate is obviously our judgment, our professional skepticism. So we should always keep that in mind and keep applying that irrespective of how much ever automation we are doing. Uh, Also, I thought that while we've spoken a lot about what we've done and what we see in terms of success, I think y'all will also get this perspective when you hear one of our stakeholders speak.
The way retail works is volume. Of late, I have observed that the internal audit team they have effectively used technology and data analytics and covering much larger data. And the audit reports, by the time we review them, comes in very complete and under smaller turnaround time. This in turn helps me as a head of operations to analyze and take immediate corrective and preventive measures. I think this is a very happy change, and I think they should continue in this direction more. The way retail
So I think the important aspects that echoed were that what stakeholders are really looking at is how fast can I get my output, on what bigger population can I get that assurance, and is it really actionable for me? So I think every time we pick up a particular project or initiative or case for automating and for data analytics, I think these are the three elements that we should think through and then kind of move ahead with the journey. In terms of the overall advantage that we've seen is obviously in terms of the coverage. We've been able to cover over 100 audits with analytics. We cover most of our branch audits with remote analytic work. We access multiple systems in Tata Capital, and the kind of outputs also enable us to ask new questions. So the outputs that we get kind of give us newer questions and newer areas to probe into. There's a significant amount of data set that we are looking at, and I think very proud to say that we've, I think, kind of have tests and scripts for over 700 risk scenarios in this short span of time. So I think the commitment is there all through and through. Like we say, Rome wasn't built in a day, but I think what it needs is a brick to be put every day. So it takes time, patience, and money to build a data analytics program. It's a journey. We're also learning every day. And I think I'm hoping you found this session useful to basically gain from the snippets that we've shown and also some of the elements that we discussed in terms of the learnings and the do's and the don'ts that we've recommended for the various case studies that we discussed. So thank you. Over to you, Deepji, sir.
Thank you very much, Abha. Thanks a lot to Bhaskar and to you. Excellent presentation. I would say simple, powerful, and incisive, and also very practical, because in your journey, you have highlighted the success mantras, the success steps which should, which lead to success, and also the mistakes which people make. And it was a very neutral presentation in terms of, do's and don'ts. People can adopt different approaches, and you have brought that out very clearly, because Tata Capital data analytics journey is, of course, a successful journey. So I think very incisive, lot of learnings. If somebody listens to this presentation carefully, all aspects have been touched upon, because they are when you speak, you are speaking from practical experience. It clearly shows that you are speaking from practical experience, because I have personally attended number of presentations and also delivered presentations in North America and a lot of other geographies, including India. And we deal with few thousand customers in India. So few hundred customers having thousands of licenses. So what I would say is multiple tools, multiple approaches, but a very practical presentation on do's and don'ts. If somebody wants to embark or already is in the process of using data analytics, but wants to excel and do better. So I think with this, let me just go over the questions quickly. Maybe Abha, you can take the questions, or Bhaskar, I leave it to both of you. There's a question: what is the periodicity of dissemination of data exceptions triggers to auditee? Abha, you'd like to take that?
So, like I said, there are certain key reporting segments that we've kind of created dashboards, and they're updated on a real-time basis. However, the balance risk scenarios that we run are at a audit-related periodicity. Some of them are also monthly, depending on the branch-related frequency, etc. So it's really a mix, Deepji. The very supercritical ones, which are getting tracked, which pertain to regulatory compliance, revenue leakage, we publish them through dashboards real time. Certain which cover location related specific are done monthly, and the others are done specific to an audit that we pick up. I hope that answers the question, sure. Deepji.
Sure. The next question is, I think this is a question which pops up every. Yeah, sorry, Bhaskar, please.
No, Bhaskar, just to add on, we have various forums where we get this opportunity to kind of communicate any significant matters. So, for example, we have an operational risk meeting, and suddenly we find there is a serious matter. So we make use of that forum to share the concerns. So it's not a very kind of hard and fast, because we are all in the journey together. So it's an organization. It's a live organization. So it's not that we will want to do it continuous, etc. Because we're all relevant. It has to become acted upon. That's the most important aspect.
Sure. The next question is, I think this comes up every time, is with the data analytics tools now available, are we moving towards population testing to provide enhanced assurance, or still rely on risk-based sample testing?
So it's a mix of both. For a lot of process-related reviews, etc., we've moved to population-based testing. However, there are still areas where, as an organization, there are a lot of processes which are still manual. So your program and your output would be in accordance to where the organization is in the digital journey. If the organization has a lot of manual processes, you will still need to do a lot of sample-based testing. So, for instance, if we in the financial services have physical files or a certain set of approvals that are manual, we will need to test them physically till obviously we move ahead on the RPA journey, etc., which is also being tested and evaluated. But I think that's a little far from where we are today. So I think both will coexist. Population-based testing for most of the tests that we have. So the 700 number indicates that. However, sample testing would still continue to be required.
Right.
Just to give a perspective, say, for example, if we are dealing with one or two systems, we can talk about the population. In our kind of context, we are having some 20 primary systems, and there are also several other systems. So to that extent, and also the digital maturity and the data maturity and all this are different. So you can't straight away, say that the entire population gets covered. So we want to be guarded, because we would like to see whether this area is ripe enough for the analytics to be deployed. And so I'm saying ticks. The SIS will always continue. That I'm talking about the ticks using the technology. Yeah.
Sure. There are 2 or 3 questions by Venugopal Gela. I think we have covered, I think Abha has covered that in the presentation, but to reinforce the questions are general priority areas for automation to work with data analysts to start the engagement. The second question is how to choose what tool to adopt. basis the accounting application? And would the data scientist need to work on extracting data from other applications like Salesforce or customer communication, CRM, etc.? Abha, I think that were explained, but you could just maybe reinforce the thought again.
Sure, Deepti. So I think in terms of prioritization, it's a very valid question and it's extremely important in the data analytics journey. But like the approach that we adopted and would recommend would be go for the quick wins first, where the data quality is more superior and you're well versed with the entire process. Go for the quick wins first, but eventually I think target for the win-wins. So basically where the risk is maximum and the data quality is superior. So those are the ones you should prioritize for automation because chances of getting false positives are lesser. Deepchi, what was the second question?
Would the data scientist need to work on extracting data from other applications like Salesforce or customer communication, CRM, etc.?
So it would depend on the tool that you're using. For instance, if the tool, for instance, IDEA has the Smart Exporter, etc. There are other tools that you're using which have the capability of directly extracting the data from the source system, then they would not need to do so. At Tata Capital, what over the years, what we've generated is a data lake, which has kind of 6,000 plus fields, and more or less in audit we don't need more than those because it kind of encompasses the entire critical field database data. So we directly access the data from the data lake. So again, I mean, it depends on the tool that you're using, whether it has capabilities to extract the information from the source system or not. Which tool to pick up? There is no one size that fits all. I think it depends on what really is your need, what is your budget, like I said, what are the costs associated, how well it integrates with your other systems, and what kind of support you're getting on the tool. So I remember the like when we'd initially implemented IDEA, we were calling Saurabh and Jairam maybe 5 times or 6 times a week. So that kind of support may be required initially. So it all depends on what your requirements are and what the organization infrastructure is.
Right.
That answer, Deepti, or you could also
Absolutely. No, I think absolutely it's right. It all depends on what do you want to do with the tool. I think you have the structure which you have said, how to build a framework answers all that, so, right. How to handle, there's one more question on how to.
We have 2 tracks going on.
Yeah.
Deepji, there are 2 tracks going on. There's a Q&A track and there's a chat track. Chat track, I'm dealing with it by through the chat replies. Yeah. Okay.
So I think I'll just.
So let it flow. No problem.
Yeah. So I think one more question is how to handle false positives in case of data analytics.
So false positives, I think would reduce with how clearly your audit team is able to kind of list the requirements. The more specific the requirements are, the lesser your false positives will be. We have created a very detailed template internally where the requirements get communicated from the auditors to the data analysts. So it not that there are no false positives, but it just helps us reduce the number of false positives because we already explain which are the relevant columns, etc., that we would be requiring, giving a background of the policy or the process requirements, etc. But I think false positives would also reduce because with the more engagement that the data analysts or the person executing the script will have with the auditors and the auditees, so it has to be more integrated and cohesive. That's the only way this can reduce. But they continue to be there, and it's a journey. And it's something that you have to learn during the journey.
Sure. There's a question on how do you share Tableau reports with other stakeholders?
So the dashboards that we publish are the one we in the macro, if I don't know if it was very visible, was we had created a dashboard, but the point that we wanted to highlight there was that we publish it to the auditees. So the last picture that we saw in the macro, in the Tableau picture, was how it gets published to the senior management and the MD. And
Right.
this is for other functions as well. So a lot of our MISs, etc., are now visually available through dashboards, etc., with stakeholders.
Right. So as Bhaskar rightly said, there are two tracks. There's on Chatbox, which Bhaskar has already answered number of questions, and on the Q&A, which I am moderating. So there's one last question on the this session, which is how to what are the general priority areas for automation? I think we answered that. I think there's one question which has already been answered by Bhaskar again, so I'll not take it up. Not yet in pipeline, depending on legal clearances. Does data analytics audit can include reading email conversations and application of NLP? So I think Bhaskar has already answered that. Not yet in pipeline, depending on legal clearances. So I think there are a lot of other comments on Q&A regarding how insightful this presentation was, how excellent this presentation was. So I'm not taking that up. And I think it was excellent presentation. So if any of you have any further questions, you can write into us and we'll certainly send it to Bhaskar and Abha to ensure that, we get answers for that. But thank you very much to all the participants and to Bhaskar and Abha for such an excellent presentation. Powerful, simple and practical presentation. Thank you very much, Bhaskar. Thanks a lot, Abha.
Thank you all. Thank you all for the opportunity to kind of share our journey. And please feel free to connect with us so that, it's a shared learning, I would say the way, it's a building is a continuous process. It's not a built analytics workshop framework. We're still building. Thank you.
Sure. And I think I request all the participants, you could log again for the next week's Analytics Wednesday, where we have Sachin Aroskar from the Lodha Group coming in to share practical experiences on his journey in analytics. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks.